So I'll get us started. As you already know, my name is Lucy Malenke, and I am a relative newcomer to this county. I married into the Malenke family, which runs the Woolly Pig Farm Brewery down in Fresno. I am a professor of writing at James Madison University, and I've spent my summers here for the last 5 or 6 years, but I've been able to teach remotely during the pandemic. So this has been my home for the last year or so. And I will let Javonna tell you a little bit more about herself.
Well, I'm Javonna Ramsey. I'm a Coshocton native, graduated from Coshocton High School in 2014. I've always been in touch and based with my community, and it's always been very important to me. I've watched and I've witnessed racial divides right here in our own town. So I jumped at the opportunity to create awareness and unity in a place that I love. So when a friend got together with me in June after the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, we decided that a Black Lives Matter protest would be how we wanted to get this started. And then shortly after, Lucy contacted me and asked me what we were going to do next. So that's when we came about Coshoctonians for Peace and Equality. We're a nonpartisan grassroots community group dedicated to bringing people together across racial divides and advocating for racial justice in Coshocton County. We hope to strengthen our community by creating opportunities for dialogue and relationship building, educating people in the ways racism not only affects you, but everybody else around you, and holding local government and police accountable.
Okay, so getting a grassroots organization off the ground during a pandemic is a little bit challenging, but the main way we've been able to recruit and communicate with folks is through our Facebook group. We have 160 members at this point in time, and one of the things that of our mission is educational. And so early in this process, I decided to create some educational units about the history of race relations in Coshocton County. That led me to discover our very complicated and mixed history here, starting with the forced removal and slaughtering of the Delaware people who lived here. We were a stop on the Underground Railroad, which was really neat to discover. We had a lot of activity from the Ku Klux Klan during the Jim Crow era, and I'm sure many of you remember the KKK rally that took place here in 1993. Which I think is connected to the history we're going to talk about a little bit more in a minute. And then, as Javonna mentioned, we were the site of a Black Lives Matter protest this past May, which Javonna helped organize. So while I was in the process of looking into this history and sharing it with our group, I came across a story. I discovered that a Black man named Henry Howard was lynched here on June 19th, 1885. And because we only have newspaper reports from that time period to go on, because those tended to be sensationalized and they tended to promote the racist stereotypes that were popular in that time, it's hard to know exactly what happened. But what we do know from piecing together those accounts is that there were 2 young white women outside of West Lafayette who were assaulted. One was raped. And in the aftermath of that, Henry Howard was pursued by a group of white men accused of the crime and thrown in jail. He had come to this area that day, I believe, seeking work in the mines. The day after he was put in jail, an angry mob descended into downtown. They broke into the jail, they dragged him outside, and they hung him in the court square after forcing a confession. We know that parts of his body were taken as souvenirs. One of his toes sat pickled in a mason jar in a Coshocton jewelry store well into the 20th century. And you can read more about this story and how people responded to it, and how it still affects people who live here today. And the pamphlet that either I or Javonna emailed to you last month, I'm also happy to send that out again if anyone wants to read it. So this is a really difficult story to tell. It's a difficult story to hear. It's a hard story, and so you might be wondering, like, why are we bringing this up a century and a half later? But we feel like it's really important for all people who live in this county to know this story, because knowing our history helps us understand where we are today and who we want to be today. We think that acknowledging this history can facilitate healing in a community that has been wounded by racism. And we think that talking about this history can create opportunities for deeper understanding and empathy and connection between people of different races and different perspectives, which is something we desperately need as a country right now. So with that in mind, we discovered some of the work that an organization called the Equal Justice Initiative is doing. The Equal Justice Initiative was founded in 1989 by a lawyer named Brian Stevenson. He wrote the book Just Mercy, which you may be familiar with. And this is a national organization that for the last 30 years has been representing clients who are sentenced to death or condemned to die in prison. They've been working to expose racial bias in the criminal justice system. And in 2019, they opened the Legacy Museum in Mobile, Alabama, which displays the history of slavery and racism in America. And that museum and the Equal Justice Initiative are doing work in communities all across the country through something called the Community Remembrance Project. So they are partnering with community coalitions to memorialize documented victims of racial violence throughout our country's history, and to foster meaningful dialogue about race and justice today. There are, again, towns all across the country who have become part of this, including Athens, Ohio. So the marker pictured here documents the lynching of Christopher Davis, which occurred in 1881 in Athens. So I'm going to hand things back to Javonna to talk about sort of where we're going next.
What we're hoping to gain out of all of this is basically just a recognition of our history, historical marker at the Coshocton County Courthouse, an exhibit or a display at the Johnson Humrick House Museum. Other things that we look forward to is story exchanges with the community, educational events, a Juneteenth celebration to not only celebrate different cultures, but to also celebrate Henry Howard, because unfortunately, that was the day that he was murdered too. A panel to dialogue on race and racism in Coshocton County, and a high school essay contest. So over the last few months, we've really been hard at work putting together a coalition of individuals and organizations to kind of help organize, plan, and promote these events. These include the Johnson Humrick Museum, the Coshocton United Way, Fresno Bible Church, West Lafayette United Methodist Church, Coshocton Public Schools, Deer Spring Community, and the City Council. We would like to ask for your support in this work in the City Council representation on the coalition.
So we want to open it up for any questions you all might have for us or suggestions for how we move forward with this work. I'm going to stop sharing the slideshow so I can see everyone's faces. But
thank you, ladies. Are there any questions from council?
I don't think so.
All right.
I know our last council meeting that we had, I had talked to the council about your email that you guys had sent and about the coalition, just briefly gave a little description of it, and said that I would be willing to represent the council. And I know Mark had also said he'd be interested too, and in helping and getting involved too. So
All right. I'd like
Thank
to-
you so much. And we're going to be reaching out within the next couple of days to everyone who said yes about our first meeting. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for the presentation and your time. And council, I hope we would
Yes.
continue this dialogue to see what role, if any, that the council will play in Coshocton. So thank you so very much for
Right.
listening and the presentation. We appreciate.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Sorry.
would like to see, I know a few people, requested the invite. I think, could you send that to everybody, please? Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so very much.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the coalition and things that you're doing, and I'll be happy to help in any way I can as well.
Right.
Right, and I appreciate you guys putting this together because we all should be Coshoctonians for peace and equality.
All right. Again, thank you very much for the presentation and your time.
Thank
Cliff, can I say one thing?
All right.
Lucy or Javonna, have you approached the commissioners or the judge of Common Pleas Court about the plaque idea on the courthouse square? Because that's probably who would have to authorize that type of.
Thank you. That's actually a question we had. And so we have not done that yet, but we will do that. That's helpful information.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
question, Bob. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, ladies. We're